Welcome back to some new petty revenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story, shall we? It's called Bought the Property He Wanted. In Sweden, there's a huge difference in house prices between popular areas and major cities compared to the countryside. This meant that I was able to buy a small fixer-upper house at the age of 23, 4 years ago, on a very average income. There was only me and one other bidder involved, and I eventually won the bidding at a reasonable price. The house is located a bit outside town, with only one other house next to it, as well as an empty lot. Shortly after moving in, an older guy came knocking on my door. He told me he was the other bidder and the owner of the empty property, and he only wanted my house in order to tear it down and make more space for his friend's RVs. He finished by essentially saying, "Enjoy your pile of junk." Since then, he has spent most of the summers in a lawn chair next to his RV on the empty property, with a clear view up my driveway, and shooting me dirty looks every time I walked or drove by. The house is a project, and I've made many improvements over the years as time and money has allowed. There's always something that needs doing on the house. And I'm also the designated mechanic for friends and family. There's usually a car or two getting repaired in my garage. This means lots of noisy tools. I've made sure to always start some kind of project when I see him sit down in his chair. This has gone on for a few summers now. He gives me dirty looks. I make noise. Only on reasonable hours though. I don't do anything he can reasonably complain about. Today I continued my bedroom remodeling, and it seems my circular saw finally broke him. He turned his RV around and put the chair in the opposite direction, where there is an actual view, as compared to my driveway. I see this as a total victory. The next story is called Not a Friend. I have a coworker that I thought was my friend. We have worked together for almost a year. A few months ago, she walked out on her job. She wanted to come back, and I got her job back. I've loaned her money, bought her food when she didn't have any, and even defended her on multiple occasions. Yesterday, I found out that she has been talking mad crap behind my back and flat out lying about me to the new employees. It really hurt because I have done so much for her. I was on closing shift last night, so I had to do the deposit. On the top of the deposit bag, we write our tips so we can minus it in the daily operating report to see if we are short. And we leave the top of the deposit bag on the desk, because the deposit bag number is needed to open the store in the morning. I know for a fact that this coworker gets angry when she sees people getting large tips, and makes her jealous, because she is really bad with money and always totally broke. And because of how she treats customers, she never gets tips. I decided to write a fake number for my tips. I only got like $8 in tips, but I wrote 48, knowing it was going to totally destroy her whole day. There's no way for her to verify my tips, and writing a fake number down doesn't affect anything at all. It's not like it will mess up count or anything, and 48 in tips wouldn't be common, but not unheard of for a Friday night. I've gotten larger tips for the night. Then, the next day, she texted me, asking if I could come into work an hour early, so she could leave an hour early. I've never told her no before. I've always helped her out when she asked, but on this day, I rocked the boat and told her no. I know she's at work right now, totally fuming, because she thinks I got large tips, and because I would not come in early for her. I didn't expect my pettiness to have such an effect on her. I went to work, and as soon as I walked in the door, she started slamming stuff around and throwing stuff. I went straight into the bathroom and texted my GM. He immediately got on the security cam and started watching her. I kept my head down and my mouth shut and said absolutely nothing to her. After watching her for about 5 minutes, he hopped in his car and came straight to work on his day off. She still didn't stop slamming stuff around, but it wasn't quite as violent once he got to work. He told me he was going to have a sit down with her about her behavior. My GM said he hopes she quits, so we don't have to deal with her anymore. I went to work the next day, and she started slamming stuff around again. I just kept my head down and ignored her. I texted the GM. She then called the GM and lied about a few things. The GM confronted her about slamming stuff around. She denied it, hung up on him, left her key in the office and clocked out and left. On her way out the door, she threatened to sue me for defamation of character. I almost laughed in her face, but I just ignored her. Looks like the trash finally took itself out. The third story is called Annual Leave. I was one of 3 full-time members of staff and one of the first jobs I ever had. The other 2 were 2 women that had been at the company for years. One of them had gotten a promotion to floor manager and was in charge of all the shifts. Naturally, they would stitch me up with all the graveyard shifts, get priority in booking annual leave. The floor manager and I shared a birthday and always arranged it so they went home early on Christmas Eve. We each had 1 half day a week, and every year, without fail, the floor manager would book annual leave and the other would get first dibs on swapping their half day. One year, with Christmas a few months away, I decided that it would be nice to spend some time with my family. They are retired or have those weeks off, so I go for it. I walk up to the floor manager and I ask the question. Immediately she's annoyed, calling me selfish, saying that Christmas Eve gets really busy. It doesn't. It's always slow, and she wouldn't know anyway. Didn't I mind that I was leaving my colleagues with a potential tidal wave of work, etc.? I politely pointed out that I was doing what our other colleague had done every year for the last 3 years that I'd worked there, but that only threw fuel on the fire. The following month, I got offered a new job. They told me the job was mine, but I just needed to wait out some HR stuff. But as soon as I see the email come through, then I'm good to hand my notice in. So the topic of Christmas Eve comes up, and I ask my colleague if she's going to swap her half day and go early, and if she's gotten any nice plans. She looks at me dumbstruck, as surely I haven't forgotten my exchange with the floor manager a month earlier, and says something along the lines of, "Well, it's not really fair to leave just you and X on shift. There has to be a minimum of 2 people, having not cared at all the previous years." I say it's fine. It's always really quiet, and I'd had a change of heart about swapping my half day anyway. So she does it, and her Paul, the floor manager, gleefully allows it. Now the thing with this particular colleague is, she's a huge show-off. Almost immediately she goes around the entire building, bragging that she's going early on Christmas Eve, saying things to me like, "I'll be thinking of you and X working on Christmas Eve." Finally, the day comes where I get the email. I go straight to the floor manager and tell her that I will be leaving, and by my calculations, I'll be leaving the week before Christmas. Her eyes widen and I can see she's furious, but she has to be nice. She asked me to please ask my new employer to delay my start date so I can help out that week. I politely decline. She calls everyone together and breaks the news to them with unveiled irritation, basically saying that I have screwed them for the run-up to Christmas, and points at our colleague and says, "And of course this means you'll have to work Christmas Eve." Of course, they make their disdain for me known to me and everybody at the company over the next few weeks. The real beauty came when, in earshot of them both, someone asked me if I was nervous about starting my new job next week. Next week? No. I don't start next week. My start date is in the new year. I'm just having a week off. The next story is called Paying the Bill. This was about 14 years ago. I had gone to visit my grandparents, who lived just up the road from where I lived. The post had just arrived, and my grandpa had received a mobile phone bill from the UK company Free. This bill was for the grand total of £2. He had just ended his contract with them, and only used his mobile phone to call family, and so that a carer would be able to contact him if he was out, while they looked after my grandma. He phoned the company, and they said, "We can take payment over the phone, but we need payment." My grandpa refused. They sent a second bill for this £2. My grandpa tried phoning them again, but they got snappy with him about it. Eventually he got fed up with them and told them, fine, he will pay his bill, and asked for an addressed envelope so that he could pay the bill, since they couldn't take payment over the phone for £2. they sent the addressed envelope, which was a prepaid envelope, along with a third bill for these 2 pence. My grandpa decided to tape 2 1-pence coins to the bill with a note stating, "I hope this payment helps the company." In the end, it probably cost more for them to post 3 letters and cover the cost of the prepaid envelope than the bill was worth. They never bothered him again as he left the company. The last story is called Landlord Screwed Himself. I am currently living in a major city with 2 friends. We are all students, so money is tight, of course. We moved into this place a little over 9 months ago and have so far had constant problems with mold, damp, broken appliances, etc. All the doors in our place are wood with little silver handles. They each have a cover you can remove to see all the screws keeping their door handles in place. The doors were also swelling like crazy due to how damp our flat was, and half of them no longer fit in the door frames. Some wouldn't close all the way, others you would have to slam shut. My flatmate's bedroom door was one of these slammable ones. One day, my flatmate got out of bed and tried to leave his room, only to find his door handle was totally flaccid, like he would push it down and nothing would happen. He was totally trapped in his room. The only way he ended up escaping was by using some skate tools he had in his room at the time and totally removing the handle from the door. We realized afterwards that the handle only had 1 out of 6 needed screws to keep it in place, and so it had totally disattached from the inner mechanism, essentially locking the door permanently. Whatever, we thought. We reported the broken door to our useless letting agency and moved on, just never shutting my flatmate's door all the way and eventually taking the handle off entirely and just using the hole left behind to pull the door open when needed. After this incident, we went around and checked all the handles. We realized that my bedroom door and my other flatmates had a different style of handle than the rest, but absolutely none of them had the correct number of screws. They all either had 1 or 2 out of 6, and mine and hers had 1 out of 4. Clearly the landlord hadn't bothered to install them properly, or they were just so old they were falling apart. Months passed, the first door stayed broken, and we were all placing bets on which one would go next. Our landlord was giving us the runaround as per usual, and we were still dealing with all the other issues going on, so my flatmate's broken bedroom door became sort of a side issue. It was annoying having a door with no handle, and it was also a major fire hazard. But what could we do? There was no way for us, a couple inexperienced teenagers, to refit the mechanisms and the handles by ourselves. We considered it, especially since the hole where it was supposed to sit was super torn up. Also, not our job. A few months down the line, another handle goes. This time it's the bathroom. Unlike my flatmate's bedroom, this one broke, so that if you closed it from the inside, you could open it again. But if you were outside, you couldn't get back in. You also couldn't lock it. Again, we reported, and just don't close the bathroom door when no one's in it. Until my flatmate was running a bath, with the door open of course, and the steam was coming out into the hallway. We have a temperamental fire alarm, so my other roommate says, "Hey, watch the steam." And without thinking, he shuts the door. No one is in the bathroom. My other flatmate, his girlfriend, says, "Did you just close the bathroom door?" He looks at her, shocked. So now we have a locked door scenario with a timer, because if we don't get this door open in the next couple minutes, we are going to start flooding our bathroom. We all panic, some chaos ensues, and luckily my flatmate is able to remove the handle, push the mechanism through, dislodge the other handle and bust the door in. No flooding, but now we are all really set off. We nearly ruined our bathroom and possibly affected the people living below us, because our landlord was a lazy prick and didn't install his door handles correctly. The next day I called up our letting agent and essentially demanded she send out a contractor to replace the now 2 broken door handles. Bear in mind, one of them has been broken for maybe 3 or 4 months at this point. She apologizes for the delay and says she'll get back to me. We wait a couple days and she comes back with an email essentially saying the landlord doesn't want to pay a contractor to replace the door handles because he thinks it's your fault they broke. Here's an invoice for the repairs. It's £350 to replace 2 door handles. I was seething. £350 for 2 handles. and he wanted us to pay it. I went around our house, taking a very thorough video of every single door handle. I took great care to show how poorly they are all installed, all the missing screws, how they barely fit into their holes, how weak some of them are, etc. And I sent it off to our letting agent with a long email detailing how the 2 broken handles are very clearly the result of wear and tear, and we refuse to pay for their replacements. Eventually she gets back to us and agrees that the video indeed proves that the handles are the landlord's responsibility, and she's going to make him replace every single one at his own expense, instead of just the 2 that are broke. And she's going to make sure he uses the contractor he quoted us, since he claimed it was the only one he trusted. Doing the maths, that's 6 door handles at £175 each, totaling £1,050 to replace all of them. If he had just replaced the 2 that were broken, or even just found a less ridiculous contractor that quoted far less, he could have saved himself hundreds of pounds. But because he's lazy and stingy and a jerk, he ended up forking over way more than he needed to, and we got all shiny new door handles. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.